Thank you, Senor Frank Casillas.
Well, I was born on March the 9th, 1928. Unfortunately, it was a year before the Great Depression. Uh, my dad fled the Mexican Revolution in 1918 to look for work here, and he found work in Arizona on the railroad. One day, he and a friend of his ventured out on their day off or whatever. They ventured out of Arizona, and they came back to camp and saying, "We saw the most beautiful place. It's like Acapulco." He says, "What's the name of the place?" This man asked. "Santa Monica." So the rest is history.
Yeah.
So my dad, he fell in love with Santa Monica. So
And what year is that, more or less?
that was about about 1918, 1919.
Okay.
And the revolution was at full blast.
Oh, the Mexican Revolution, that's right.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
terrible. So that's where a lot of people fled for a better life here,
Right,
including the Casillas clan,
right.
which were brought up in Jalisco, Mexico.
How old are you again right now?
I'm 95.
Wow, okay.
I'm 95 years old.
Amazing.
And if I had known I was going to live so long, I would have drank more. But that's another story.
Yeah, we'll get
But
it.
anyway,
And where was your dad and your mom from? Like what parts of Mexico?
Jalisco.
Oh, both of them?
Yes, both of them.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
And how about their parents?
I never knew my grandparents.
Mm.
I never ventured back to Mexico. I'll always regret that, but I never went back. Some of my siblings went
Yeah.
to.
And how many siblings do you have?
Well, they're all gone, but one sister.
Yeah.
I had a total of 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a total of 8. That was sort of common.
Yeah. And what number were you in?
I was in the middle,
Okay.
you know, of the clan.
Oh,
you know,
nice.
the family.
How many boys? How many girls?
3 girls and 5 boys.
Oh, wow,
3 girls
okay.
and 5 boys. That was pretty much average for a Mexican family.
Yeah.
True Catholics.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, anyway,
In your memoir, you mentioned something about catechism and.
I didn't like. My mother sent us to a school which is just a block away from our house, and she was possibly afraid of us getting hit by a car.
What school was that?
Garfield
Garfield.
Elementary by the ballpark on
Okay.
16th Street. So she was afraid of us getting maybe hit by a car or something. So she just sent us to Garfield
Yeah.
instead of St. Anne's. But being Catholic, she sent us to catechism once we reached the 5th grade, and that was to me a bad experience.
Yeah.
The sister resented the fact that me and my younger
Yeah.
sister, we both went together. I sensed the resentment because we were not enrolled there.
Yeah.
And kids from the school, once they were out of the St. Anne's school, they would come to the windows and mock us and make fun of us because
Yeah.
we were Garfield dummies. You know, we were
Bunch of them,
outsiders.
yeah.
And anyway, I would tell my mother, "Mom, I don't want to go anymore. I don't like the school. The sister doesn't like us." You could feel it. I could sense it.
Yeah.
So, "Oh no, you got to make your first Holy Communion and your confirmation," which I did. And I'm fast forwarding now.
Oh, that's fine.
Just to pacify my mother. When I got married, I said, "Let's get married in a Catholic church," just to pacify my mother, to make her happy.
Right.
I mean, my wife wasn't too hot on it. She was a Baptist for one thing.
Oh, okay.
But she went along with the program. She was a good sport about it. She was from Venice. I met her in 1950. They made us go to confession. I says, "What do I confess? I was 11 years old." I says, "I didn't shoot anybody or rob a bank."
Yeah.
"Well, think of something," they would say. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just flat didn't like it.
Yeah.
And but the barrio was predominantly Catholic, you know,
Yeah.
about 80% Mexican, and then a few blacks and even Orientals.
Yeah.
So
Are you still Catholic now, or do you consider yourself Catholic?
I
still?
consider myself a spiritualist,
Okay.
spiritual, leaning towards. I read a lot on Buddhism.
Yeah.
I was on vacation one time in Morro Bay and waiting for my wife to get herself primped up. You know, in the nightstand, you always have like a Bible or something.
Yeah.
In those days, they did.
Yeah.
Well, this time, the guy that had the motel, that owned the motel, was a Buddhist. A young man, very nice. I said, gee, this guy's nice. Well, I started reading this book on Buddhism. So when we checked out, he had a bunch of them in the office. I said, I'd like to buy one of those books. He said, no, you may have it. You know, he was very kind, very nice. I said, gee. So I read the whole book, and the rest is history. I read a lot of books on Buddhism and spiritualism.
Yeah.
And I feel that has, I like to think, made me a better person.
Yeah.
More understanding
Yeah.
and compassionate to my fellow human beings, you know. And I sent my girls to one last chance. I sent two of them. I don't know if it was her or one of my younger ones to catechism, just to see if they like Catholicism.
Yeah.
And one of them came home crying. He says, "What's the matter?" You?
Linda.
Linda came. My daughter, younger daughter, came home crying. I said, "What's the matter?" The priest wants to know if we've had sex yet. Can you believe that?
Oh wow.
11, 10 years old,
Yeah.
about that age.
Wow.
And I looked at my wife and said, "That's it."
Yeah.
That's
But
it.
back then, was there any kind of like awareness or any kind of like, even like talk amongst families, like, oh, you know, that they might be doing things like that?
Oh, it was hush hush in those days.
Yeah.
Even the masses were all done in Latin.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
why am I going to mass on Sundays? It's all in Latin. It was
Not even Spanish, Latin though, right? Like,
Latin, not
Wow.
Spanish,
yeah,
Latin.
Wow.
And we didn't understand what they were talking about, but that's the way it was in those days,
Yeah.
you know.
And like that was like what, like in the 20s, 30s?
Yeah, 20, 30s,
Yeah.
And I was about 11, 12 years old.
And that was like at St. Anne's Church you guys would go to?
At the St. Anne's Church,
Okay. Still there?
And they resented the fact, like I mentioned before, that I went to a public school,
Yeah.
only because it was nearby.
Yeah.
But getting back to my mom,
Yeah.
she
tell us
was
more
a
about
very generous woman, my mother. And when PTA meetings would come around, she would fix trays of tacos, enchiladas, refried beans, and take them to the meetings. Says, Mrs. Casillas, says, oh, they were happy to see my mother.
Yeah.
And they ate like, oh, and they could hardly wait for the next meeting.
Yeah.
I would think. And I said to myself, I'm gonna be like my mother. I want to be a giver, not a getter.
Yeah.
The givers are happier than getters.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
So, but as the years went by, like I told you, I encountered this Buddhist owner of this motel and read that book, and I started reading books on Buddhism. You probably saw my book there, right?
Yeah.
And it's really changed my life. It's really changed my life to be a giving person. Be good to people, and that's my motto. And be a giver, not a getter.
Yeah.
Getters are never happy, never have enough. You know that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's been my creed. You know, my feelings about life. Treating people good. You know, if they don't respond, well, that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
that's life. Everybody has a different nature. I was closer to my mother because my father was kind of selfish.
Yeah.
He liked the ladies.
Yeah.
And when my mother came to join him in California, in Santa Monica, he was playing house with another woman.
Yeah.
And my mother discovered that. And I used to wonder, why is my mother so hard on my dad?
Yeah.
She was always on his case.
Yeah.
For one thing, he was gone for weeks, months on
Yeah.
drinking binges to drown his sorrows and my mother's wrath,
Right.
you know. So I used to wonder. And one time he came home for dinner and he sat down to eat, and I asked my mother, Mama, who's that man? I said, well, that's your father. Oh, see, that's how much I knew about my.
Oh wow.
It was kind of sad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But when he did work, he was a good hard worker. He used to work in Fullerton, and Orange County was full of orange groves,
Yeah.
lemon groves, orange groves. And my dad would once in a while take me with him just for, I would run around the trees and everything. But when he worked, he was a good worker, you know.
Yeah. It seemed like you get like when I was reading your memoir, it seemed like you guys were very close to like working the land. Like your mom would send you to pick stuff from the cemetery or from mushrooms, and your dad was working
picking
in the fields.
mushrooms from the my dad wouldn't eat them. He was afraid of them.
Yeah.
They thinking they were poisonous. Yeah. But he was And you ever heard of the wild weed called verdolagas? It's a wild weed. They put it in a, you saute it and all that, and it was good. But
so the cemetery was like a kind of like a garden for you guys almost, yeah.
Oh yeah. And Christmas for us was waiting for the Salvation Army truck to come down our block with a bushel basket full of used toys and bruised fruit. But to us, it was Christmas. It was wonderful. And that we would look forward to. And to this day, I have a soft touch in my heart for the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
They're a good outfit,
Yeah.
And as I was growing up, well, one thing I liked about the public schools is we would go on field trips. You guys probably went on field trips in buses. San Fernando Mission, the La Brea tar pits, the museums. And I learned a lot from it. And St. Anthony didn't do all that. Well, they were not financially endowed, possibly. But when the teacher would tell us, next week we're going to go to the La Brea tar pits or the San Fernando Mission. Oh, man, we'd get all excited,
Yeah.
And but anyway, going back to I was born in 28, as you know, and then the Great Depression came a year later, 1929, a market crash, poverty everywhere. We didn't have homeless people in those days, not one, but these young guys, they would hop trains to go from one end of the United States to another looking for work.
Oh, wow.
They even came to the barrio.
Yeah.
White guys, asking for, is there anything we can do to our yard? Our yard was nothing but dirt and a bunch of chickens my mother would raise, to feed us. My mother was very much that way. When she didn't have chickens going, she had rabbits going to eat.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And,
my great grandma Lupe Villa, rest in peace. She would tell me back in the day that like during the Great Depression, that a lot of times they would grow celery somewhere like down off of Jefferson. And
anything. Oh, that reminds me. And then we had this man. Not to interrupt.
Oh yeah, no, please.
But anyway, we had this little old man in the barrio. He had 2 horses in a wagon.
Oh yeah.
And he would. And in those days, Santa Monica had not a lot, but enough empty lots where he would plant corn.
Yeah.
And the people would honor his hard work. They would never steal his corn. So when it was harvest time, we would harvest the corn, fill the wagon, go up to Pico Boulevard, where Santa Monica City College is now, on Pico Boulevard, and catch the beach crowd coming home. And they would stop and buy corn, And we would sell corn there by Santa Monica City College, which was an empty lot.
Yeah, 17th Street.
Yeah, 17th Street.
But wasn't there cornfields right there too, I think?
No, cornfields were in the barrio. The barrio had a few empty lots, no more empty lots in Santa.
Like what area was the barrio?
The barrio was from 14th Street to 20th Street between Olympic Boulevard and Michigan. And in the early 60s, the city of LA claimed eminent domain, so they took it over because they wanted to build a Santa Monica freeway.
Yeah. How old were you when the freeway came in?
The freeway came in the early 60s, I believe.
Okay.
In the early 60s, the Santa Monica freeway, and the goodbye barrio.
Yeah.
So here I am, And
we're still living, your house on 16th Street, I forgot what your address was.
The first house.
Yeah, so your first house where you were born, that's, directly under what the 10 freeway now. It doesn't exist anymore. Like
the freeway is.
So did you guys move from the first house because of the eminent domain from the city?
When that came about, I was already married.
Yeah.
I was renting a house off of Broadway and 20th by St.
Yeah,
Anne's.
so you're already older at that time.
Yeah, 20th and Broadway. I was renting a home, the wife and I. But
Frank, what did your first house look like?
it was a wooden frame house. We were paying rent $9 a month.
Wow.
$9 a month. And when he was a white man, but a very nice man. And he asked us when he was moving, and he asked us if my folks wanted to buy the house, $900,
Wow.
Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But that I'm talking about the 30s.
Yeah.
And we couldn't come up with $900. He might as well have said $9 million.
Yeah.
You know, so we couldn't come up with that.
Yeah.
So these other guys took over and they raised the rent, so we kept moving and moving on the barrio, you know. But
What did the barrio look like back in those days, Frank? Was it just a lot of farmland, little houses, or?
there were little wooden frame houses, nothing stucco, like you see now. It was all wooden frame houses, predominantly Mexican, a few blacks, and even Japanese. And that's another thing I want to touch upon.
Yeah.
When World War II broke out, and there was a big hullabaloo about the Japanese and the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor and all that. There was so much hatred for anybody with slant eyes.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any. I was just a kid, you know. And they were nice people. In fact, the next door neighbors were Japanese. His name was Takio. And so I was about 14 years old once Pearl Harbor was bombed. I was 13 when it was bombed, and then and they came over with all their clothing giving them to my mother, shoes and clothes. I said, "Mom, what's happening? Where are they going?" "Oh, they're going to be putting them away." You know, like Manzanar, Santa Anita Racetrack, places like that. And it was so sad, you know. But they one thing about Asian people, they don't squawk or anything. They just they came back, and they picked themselves up.
Right.
I had Japanese friends, Tokyo, and I had a couple.
And they got put in the camps.
They got put in the camps. They didn't make a fuss about it.
Yeah.
They just served their 2-3 years in the camps, and then
How'd you
years
feel
later.
about it, and like how'd you feel about it, and how was like the general Mexican community, like how did they feel about what was happening to the Japanese?
Oh, we felt bad for them.
Yeah.
We did, because we liked them. They were our neighbors. You know, they were our neighbors, and when they came back without a fuss, they picked themselves up again. They were very proud people.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a homeless Japanese?
No, not many.
Not really, huh?
Yeah.
No, they're very proud.
Right.
They work. They like to work.
Did you see your friends after they came back from the camp?
No.
You didn't see
They
them?
never came back. I don't know what happened to them. That was so sad. But and homeless people, you don't see Japanese.
Yeah.
They're very proud people. They work hard. I was in the army in Korea. I missed World War II because I was a kid.
Yeah.
In fact, the war ended when I entered Samo High. I went to Samo High, Santa Monica High School, and the war ended then. But 5 years later, I got caught in the Korean War. And
how old were you? Like you're like what, 18, 19 around that time?
no, in the Korean War, no, I was 22.
Oh, okay, you're older. Okay,
I was 22. But I got lucky. I was in the quartermaster corps, not the infantry. Thank God.
Your granddaughter Sarah mentioned that you were in the that book, the Mexican American Baseball on the West Side.
Did you know the Guajardos?
I don't think so.
Angel, Felix Guajardo, Ray Serra, they were great baseball players, and they were older than me. I was just a young guy, but they needed a shortstop. I was a shortstop in high school, and they knew that. And I went and played many years with them, and softball and baseball. It was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people. Joe DiMaggio was my idol when I was a kid. I saw him play at what was in Wrigley Field. He was in the service. World War II. I was 15 years old.
Where's that at? More or less.
Avalon, 42nd and Avalon. It's a black area.
Yeah.
Bad, but at the time it wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. When the war broke out, a lot of blacks from the South migrated to California to work in the aircraft industries, like Douglas here.
Yeah.
It was just booming with making warplanes. In the wartime years, the 40s.
40s, okay.
41 to 45.
Yeah.
I would say the majority of the people living in sleepy little Santa Monica worked in Douglas, at Douglas.
Right.
Yeah, ladies and older men, but the young guys were in the service. But, and this was a lima bean field here.
Right here.
Harvested by Japanese farmers. And on the other side of Beethoven Market, you know where Beethoven Market?
Yeah.
Okay, that was celery. That was my first home. I had a 2-bedroom house down there beyond Beethoven Market. And they grew celery there. In fact, when I bought there in the late 50s, when I was working in the backyard, celery was still coming.
Nice.
I could see celery still blooming, you know.
Oh, wow.
Wow, you know.
Yeah.
But this was all hillside, and this hill here, Mar Vista, they call it the Mar Vista Hill. It was built in 1953, the year my wife and I got married, because this was just a bean field and all that. And the homes, when they first broke, when they first started selling, they were selling for $14,500. Now they want $3 million.
Oh, yeah.
Across the street, at this house here, that was just finished earlier this year, $3 million.
Wow.
Well, Silicon Valley's moving in. People like that.
Yeah.
People with money. My
How do
house.
you feel about that, Frank?
This is the original dwelling. This is the original house. But it's not the house. It's the lot they want.
Yeah.
And I have a big lot.
How do you feel about all the change, and how do you feel about it in general?
Well, it's the signs of the times. You just have to be philosophical about it. You got to expect change. Nothing stays the same. In life, nothing stays the same. That's my thought. Things change.
Yeah.
And they're nice people. These people that are coming in, they're nice people, but they're not neighborly like the old days, you know.
Yeah.
This was a blue-collar neighborhood when I moved here.
Yeah.
Everybody was blue-collar. Now they're Silicon Valley, man.
Yeah.
When I sell this house, my girls are going to benefit from it, you know, when this house is. And that's my reward to them, you know.
Casillas are a big family, right?
8 of us. Well, my family,
Yeah.
5 girls.
Okay.
I'm a ladies' man.
Okay.
5 girls. You know. So anyway, getting back to baseball,
Yeah.
I went to see Joe DiMaggio. He was in the service in the Air Force with a bunch of all-stars. They were playing the local boys, the Los Angeles Angels AAA team. He had 2 home runs, a double, and a single. I was in awe. But when he would come to the plate, it was like royalty coming to the plate. Joe DiMaggio. And then when I started playing, I tried to mimic him. I wasn't Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah. But you and your friend, when you heard about him, DiMaggio playing at Wrigley Field, I think, you and your friend went to go see him, right? Like how'd you get there? Like, take us through like the day.
Streetcars.
Okay.
Well, the Santa Monica Blue Bus was in existence then, but when you got to the end of the line, it was you transferred two transfers, streetcars, little rickety streetcars.
Yeah.
Red, and they were 2 transfers, and you're past the Coliseum, and then you're at Wrigley Field. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It was owned by Philip Wrigley, the gum millionaire. He owned Casillas Island.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, that's where they used to spring train, the Cubs.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I played a lot of baseball in the Valley and in Santa Monica with the Guajardo boys, Ray Serra, the Romos, and a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. It was a blessing. I had a little athletic ability.
Yeah.
I played shortstop at Samo High, and it was just a blessing. I wasn't,
How far did you take your baseball? I guess
just
career,
semi-pro. Because when I came home, I was 24. No, I wanted to settle down.
Yeah.
And, for a ball player, that's getting up there in age a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you
24,
gotta.
he said?
But my younger brother played in the Chicago Cub farm system. Leonard, my baby brother, he
Leonard
was a
Casillas?
pitcher, and
Yeah.
he played. He played for the Cub farm, and then he developed a strong arm but they didn't have Tommy John surgery in those days, so he had to give it up,
Yeah.
you know. But anyway, it was a lot of fun playing ball, you know. I always had a love for art
Yeah.
and reading. And when I went to John Adams here, you know John Adams,
Yeah.
middle school, they call it junior high then.
Yeah.
And I was so happy that they had a library because I love to read. I love to read. When I started selling papers at age 9 at Santa Monica street corners, and I would read about Adolf Hitler and the next movie he was gonna make. And, oh, he's invading Russia. He's crazy. Russia's a big country.
What are some of your favorite books?
Some of my favorite books were John Steinbeck's books, a lot of autobiographies, Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
Tina Turner.
Yeah.
I just read a book on Tina Turner.
Yeah.
What a performer.
Yeah.
And but a lot of people, not just sports figures.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela was my hero. Martin Luther King was my hero.
Yeah.
I used to look up to these people,
Right.
you know, and
Were you ever involved in any kind of like activism or like social justice stuff when you were younger?
that didn't come about until the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
We didn't have any protests during World War II. See, I was a World War II kid.
Yeah.
Not too much. Vietnam, I thought was wrong.
Yeah.
In my heart, I already came back from Korea, and we didn't. Even Korea, we didn't have any business there. It was none of our business. They let them fight their own damn fights.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what I felt about Vietnam.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of guys in the Vietnam War got hooked on drugs.
Yeah.
And that's where the drug scene really blossomed. They just didn't want to be there.
Brought it back home, and that kind of did that affect the community when they came back? The drugs?
Well, it was beginning to, you know, people weren't too hot. I mean, I wasn't welcome as a conquering hero,
Yeah.
you know. They didn't resent me or anything. It wasn't my fault. I mean, you know, I didn't want to go,
Yeah.
you know. When I took my medical, I made the big mistake when the doctor asked me, the psychiatrist asked me if I like girls. And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
If I should have said I like boys.
Yeah. Right up.
I goofed.
And when you were like went to the war, like did they draft you or did you
They
volunteer?
No, they drafted me.
Okay.
No, I wasn't going to volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
And for the love of reading, I love to read. Here I was coming home on a train. I think I told my daughter about it, my family. I was coming home.
Yeah.
The train was going to take us back to the rear end to
Yeah.
catch a boat to come home. And I was getting a little bored, and I was by the window of the train.
Yeah.
So, and I I got a book in my duffel bag.
Yeah.
You know, so they were all stacked up at the corner of the
Yeah.
rear there. So I got up. Bang! A bullet came right through where I was sitting.
Yeah.
And the guy says, Frank, all my buddies looked at me. If I would have stayed there 5 seconds later, it would have entered my temple about here there. Because it came through the window, but because I like books,
Yeah.
books saved me.
Oh wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. Wow.
You remember what book you were going to get?
God's Little Acre.
Wow.
It was it wasn't a nonfiction book. It was by Erskine Caldwell.
Okay.
Erskine Caldwell.
That's a good luck book then, huh? And you said you had a like a love for California history. You got really interested in
Oh
that. Like,
yeah, I love history.
how did that start, and like what are some of the things you've learned? Or
Well, it all started,
surprised
I
you.
think, even by selling papers. And during lulls in selling papers, I would read what was going on, what the Hitler was up to,
yeah.
and historical things. And I never read junk.
Yeah.
I always read like autobiographies, nonfiction,
Yeah.
spiritual books now that I'm old. And this is who I am. I like to treat people the way I would like to be treated, you know. Be a giver and not a getter.
Right.
They're the happier people, givers.
Hey,
And my mother taught me that.